Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Roy's Tie-Dye Sci-Fi Corner. This is episode number 206, and we are discussing An American Werewolf in London, the classic 1981 film. With me tonight to discuss this classic from our 80s childhood is my friend, my co-host, the one and only, Mr. Ross Amico. Ross, welcome.
Welcome, Roy. Thank you.
How are you, Ross?
Doing okay. Yourself?
I'm doing good.
Halloween month.
Is that crazy, Ross? I mean, we're like in the middle of Halloween.
You're halfway through Halloween month. I hope you're doing Halloween things. You watching some good movies?
Yeah, actually. We watched I was going to say The Exorcist. We watched American Horror last night.
Which one?
Amityville Horror.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It was okay. You know what was interesting? You know what was interesting about that film, Ross, is that they did not shoot at the house in Long Island, but they actually filmed that down in Toms River, New Jersey.
Oh, really? Yeah. See, now that would have been before I knew anything about Toms River. So that's interesting.
Yeah, they shot the exteriors down there, and they built a boathouse for it, and then obviously they filmed the interior shots in LA. But yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. That it was a local.
So was it Christopher? Who was Chris Christopherson? Was he the lead or no?
No, it was actually James Brolin and Margot Kidder.
Okay, so Chris Christopherson must have been the sequel then.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I get them mixed. I get them scrambled in my head. But Rod Steiger was in it, right?
He was.
Yeah, right. And the flies.
And the flies. Don't forget the flies, Ross.
Yeah. Right.
No, actually, it was entertaining, and it was. I had never watched that film from beginning to end, so it was kind of cool. So it was decent. Hey, I want to welcome our viewers that are out there. Christian is joining us from Canada. Christian, welcome. And Randy Lee is out there. Randy, welcome. We don't know yet, Randy. Maybe we'll find out by the end of the show.
Yeah.
To be determined. Christian is saying, yes, Ross, the sequel was the prequel.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Right. The unnecessary prequel.
Yeah, there you go. And Claudia's out there. Claudia Combs is joining us. Welcome, Claudia. Good to see you out there. Welcome to the show this evening. So we're going to talk about this classic tonight. And Scott is out there. Scott, welcome. Good to see you out there, Scott. Scott, I believe you're broadcasting from Florida, if I'm not mistaken, if you can confirm that. I try to remember everybody. In fact, Randy, I have a mental block where you're at. I want to say you are somewhere north. Brennan is out there, and he's saying, I am still dancing from your new title sequence. Isn't that cool?
That's lifted from Roy and my buddy cop show that we did in the 70s.
What SWAT? No, I want to give a big thank you to Jeffrey Morris for that. I also want to give a thank you to Frederick Hagen. He did a great job, with the graphics and everything. And then also Michael Nelson with the music, and produced by Jeffrey. It so embodies what we're doing on the show. So it's just, it's
too good for this show. We get that great opening, and then we open our mouths.
Easy, Ross.
That's
Look into
great.
the light. Look into the light. Actually, look into the tie-dye, Ross.
Or you get enough of it. Yeah.
Thank you, Randy. Wisconsin. Okay, there we go. I'm sorry.
Wisconsin.
And then Claudia's in East Panhandle of West Virginia. Okay,
Hmm.
mental note for next time. Let's see if I remember that on Friday when we come back to do Friday's show. So I have made a mental note, and I apologize. It's just brain overload sometimes. Shari's out there. Shari, hi, hun. She's saying, "Hey guys, love this movie, one of my favorites." And there's a shower scene. How you two got in to see it in the movies at age 15 is a surprise to me. A lot of nudity and bad language and gore, lots of laughs. Yeah, I actually have to say, and I will say this, I was like very enamored with Jenny Agutter. Am I
Yeah,
pronouncing her name? Agutter?
probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thereabouts.
Yeah. As a 15-year-old, yeah. Definitely. So 2 thumbs up.
It's surprising going back and looking at it now, though, that you always, in my memory, there was more. And, maybe it's just the things that got ramped up more recently, or it was built up in my mind back then, but it didn't seem like there was as much, nudity. It was all suggested.
Yeah.
Mostly.
Mostly.
Mostly suggested, not all of it.
Very, very little.
Mind in the gutter. Yeah. Mind in the gutter. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, and she was a very lovely, and she is a very lovely lady. Yes, Randy. It's crazy because looking back at the ages when they filmed this film, the film was made in 1981. It was filmed in February, March of 81 because John Landis wanted the weather to be very dreary, very bad to add to the atmospheric conditions of the film. So you have that. David Naughton was like 30 years old or 29 going into his 30th year. And Jenny was, I believe, around the same age. So, and Griffin Dunn was a little younger than they were. So yeah, it's crazy to think.
Do you remember David Naughton from the I'm a Pepper commercials?
I was trying to. I saw when doing the research that he was in those Dr. Pepper commercials, and he was a huge part of those, I guess. Yeah. And he's a singer too. He's not just an actor. And I was very surprised to find out that he is the younger brother of James Naughton, who we know from the Planet of the Apes television series that was done in 1974, and then also other things that he's done as well too. So.
You see, I didn't know that, but every time I saw James Naughton, or vice versa, I always thought of the other guy.
Yeah,
I knew it wasn't the same guy, but they were brothers. That's crazy.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? It is crazy.
Yeah, well, good for them.
Randy said, so I was working at a store that rented VHS tapes. The rating system you referred to was rather ineffective to me. There you go. Hey, Jack, thanks for joining us tonight. He's saying, hey, everyone. Hope everyone is moon is full. Exactly. And Matt Anthony's in the house. Matt, welcome. He's saying, Geek and the Thin Man, Roy and Ross's 70 Cop Show. There you go. Absolutely. Hey, Matt.
Yeah. So, so I knew him from the Dr. Pepper commercials. I say he's the Dr. Pepper guy.
That's hysterical. Yeah. He's done actually a lot of chiller theater. Again, chiller theater for the folks out there, just to remind everyone, is almost like an autographic type of convention that takes place either in the UK or they have in California, where it's a big autograph type of signing convention. And it's usually in April and then also in October. It runs essentially every 6 months. And David Naughton actually has appeared at Chiller. Unfortunately, I have not actually met him, but he has been there on several occasions. So I think it would be kind of cool to talk to him about this film. Christian is saying, Griffin Dunn said something in the commentary track, how come they didn't put the Warren Zevon song Werewolf of London?
Zevon. Yeah, I wonder why that is. If they couldn't get the rights or what it was. But because every other Moon song was in the movie.
Yeah, right.
Do you have a favorite monster? Were you into monsters when you were a kid, or not? You were more of a sci-fi guy.
I was more of a sci-fi guy. I mean, I did like the monsters. I like the monsters.
The monsters, right?
The monsters were the monsters, right?
Yeah.
I liked Frankenstein. I liked the vampires. I like Dracula. I was a big Christopher Lee fan for when he did
Mm.
Dracula with the Hammer films. That was something I really enjoyed. I really wasn't into Godzilla, and as a lot of folks have noticed, we have really not covered that on the show, and really we need to pretty much give that a go ahead, because I know there's a lot of Godzilla fans out there, and Matt, I know you're out there. I know you're a Godzilla fan. And Ultraman, definitely liked Ultraman. Channel 17, 4 p.m., Monday through Friday, growing up on after school.
Sure.
That was probably the extent of it.
He was always fighting the monster of the week. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The kaiju monster, the big monsters. What do you know? Telephone. Hi, I'm doing Roy's show.
That's probably one of our viewers.
Hello.
Wrong number. Nothing. You got nothing.
I got nothing. So who's Roy? I'm going to shut this off right now. It was probably a robocall.
Probably on a Sunday night at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Brennan is saying, "Do the first Godzilla. That's the best." Okay, well, we will take that under consideration.
Yeah. So I was always into the monsters from an early age. I probably told the story before how I used to watch these things when I was 5. I used to sit on the couch with my mother and watch. You remember Chiller Theater on PIX, and and they'd always show the Universal horror movies, the black and white films. So we watched Frankenstein together and Dracula, but my favorite was always the Wolfman.
Okay.
Back then, I mean, I like them all. I did like them all, but for some reason, I liked the werewolves, and that was kind of, I think, an unpopular choice. I think the vampires seem to be, they get more movies, but part of the reason for that is probably because it's hard to do a convincing werewolf. Like back in the day, when they did the shape shifting, they had to do it all through the Jack Pierce makeup and the stop motion. They'd shut the camera off and put a little more hair on him and turn the camera on again, put a little more hair on him and kind of like crossfade it. And it wasn't until, suddenly in the 1980s, there was this bumper crop of werewolf films. We had The Howling and American Werewolf in London came out the same year. Yep. And Wolfen was out that year too, which really wasn't strictly speaking a werewolf movie, but it had supernatural, wolf-like creatures in it. But what they traded in the atmosphere of the older movies, you had a lot of fog and a lot of suggestion. Here we saw everything in 81 because now we can have these incredible, werewolf transformations. And it was before CGI.
Yes, absolutely.
So it was all practical effects. But one thing though, the transformations in this and The Howling are so excruciating. It's so long. I like to think that if you're going to turn into a wolf, it wouldn't take quite that amount of time. It's like Superman. What if he ran into a phone booth and it took him that long to like change his clothes in real time? It's got to be like this. You got some werewolfing to do.
Oh, sorry. No, and actually, you're right about that. In fact, there is part of the commentary or part of information that John Landis had talked about. I guess he had some regrets as far as what he had done in regards to this movie, and then he said one of the regrets was that the transformation sequence was as long as it was, but he was really taken in by what Rick Baker had done with the effects, and we'll talk about a little bit about him later on. But Rick Baker, I mean, this movie actually paved the way in regards to an Academy Award win for best makeup, which had never been done before. So that in itself was pretty cool, pretty impressive.
Well, yeah, it created the category.
Yes, exactly.
Which in part, from what I understand, was a reaction to outrage that The Elephant Man didn't get nominated the year before, for its makeup. The award had been given out a few times. There were like special achievement awards they gave out for makeup, but never, the category was created with this movie. I guess it was Seven Faces of Dr. Lowe was received the special Oscar. Was his name William Tuttle, the makeup artist? Is that his name, William or John or William? I think, right?
That film, it's interesting that you just mentioned that because I came across that in regards to that, and I think that was 1964. So that's going back 17 years at that at that
Yeah.
time. Too.
William Tuttle. Yeah. And then John Chambers got one, I remember, for Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the Apes. Yep. 68.
Right.
Yep.
But, starting with 81 and going forward, there was makeup every year for that sort of thing. Yeah.
Which really there should have been. I mean, when you think about the effects, Dick Tracy, look at 1990. I mean, that film, and that Doug Drexler, I believe, had won in regards to that. Just incredible. And I just keep dropping my pen. Hey, I want to welcome Lou. Lou's out there. He's saying, "Hey, I'm late to the party, but good evening. Welcome, Lou. Good to see you out there."
Oh.
And then I also see Dennis Chevalier is joining us from Canada. Welcome, Dennis. I don't see Warren is out there yet, but I just want to give a shout out to Warren. Today's Warren's birthday. So, folks, if you see Warren later and he happens to pop on, make sure you wish him a happy birthday. Today is his birthday. So, happy birthday, Warren.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. And then Brendan is saying William. So, it would have been William Tuttle.
It is William Tuttle. Yeah. I got it scrambled in my head with John Chambers. That's why. Yeah, so I watched these things with my mom, and then of course, when I got a little older, I started watching Dr. Shock out of Philadelphia on Channel 17 at my grandparents' on Saturday afternoons, and I was like monster mad, as a lot of kids were. Surprisingly, we got all hung up on these movies from like the 30s and like 1940. It's like, what's going on? The early 70s, everybody's like hooked on these Universal horror classics and Marx Brothers movies. The Haig and I were just messaging back and forth today about, what's going on? Like, why were the kids so into the Marx Brothers in the early 70s? And it's
I remember how much of a Marx Brothers fan you were, Ross. I mean, that was huge back in the day, and that carried over probably into the early 80s where you were watching those movies. The one that really comes to mind, the film immediately, is Duck Soup.
Yeah. That's the best of them. Yeah. It's so dada. Yeah.
Hey, I want to welcome May. May's joining us. Welcome, May. Thanks for being out there. And also Jeff Rubel. Hey, Jeff. Jeff is joining us out west. Welcome to the show.
And, kids my age will all be reading the Forrest Ackerman, the famous monsters of Filmland. We collect those Topps creature feature cards. I don't know if you remember those. The trading cards were very big back then with the stale bubble gum, and they'd have humorous captions on the cards and the monster models. On Saturdays, I go to 1977. I think he died. 77,
he died. Yeah,
I remember when Groucho died also. Yeah, and I know. Well, that's sad. Yeah, it's true. My nephews don't know who the Marx Brothers are. It's crazy, or didn't know. The monster models. I used to go to Hobby Hangout on a Saturday, and I'd get those Aurora monster models, and I'd glue them together. And grandparents' house would be stinking of that glue, where it says like harmful vapors on the glue, and your fingers are all stuck together, and you're trying to get the model finished.
Ross, you just mentioned Hobby Hangout. I have not heard that in years.
Oh yeah.
Can you remind me where Hobby Hangout was?
It was right down the street from the State Theater on Northampton Street, on the same side of the street. Yeah, it was one of those storefronts.
But didn't they move and go to another location?
They did. They were out in Palmer Township, and I don't know if they're still there, but they're out near. There's a grocery store out there, and I'm not sure what it is now. It's on William Penn, I think, or off William Penn.
Yes. And essentially, it was a modeling store. It was
within range of like Bardon Lanes and
Bardon Lanes. Yeah,
not too far from there. But I don't remember what the stores are.
That's right. I wonder if they're still actually down there.
Yeah, they were there. I'm sure I checked within the last, I don't know, when I say a few years, it could have been 10 years and they were still there. So they could be around. But I don't know if they still have the Aurora models. They might be doing other stuff, but those are kind of classic at this point. But anyway, the point is that the monsters were very, 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 I was very into these. They were like my first obsession. And, I get like werewolf books and stuff. I'd have, Nancy Garden's Book of Werewolves and S. Baring Gould's, Book of the Werewolves. And
it was the whole shebang was out. Hey, Linda. Linda's joining us briefly, but says she can't stay, but just wanted to say hi. Hi, Linda.
Yeah, just like Groucho. Hello, I must be going.
Nice seeing you, Linda.
Nice seeing you. Drive by Linda.
Drive by Linda. right through the drive-through as we're doing the show.
Great
Oh
stuff.
man, it would have been great to have had this type of show. Painful effects, late in transformation in Tootsie. Hoffman would have been down. Oh my God, Matt. All right, Matt, that's your first. That's your first pass for the night, and then you pass over.
Yeah.
Uh,
But oddly, for as much as I loved monsters, I was a sensitive kid. So I was like not a gore kid. So you were talking about the Christopher Lee Dracula films. It's like the Hammer films were too lurid for me when I was a kid. I was like scared of the Technicolor orange blood.
You know what's hysterical, Ross? And I did not realize how squeamish you were as a kid. I had no idea. I mean, you've mentioned that on the show numerous amount of times, and every time I hear it, I'm just like, what? I almost want to do a Luke Skywalker on you. What? How? I mean, I just like, really, Ross? It's just like okay.
I was afraid of PG-rated movies. Like, my mom took me to see Day of the Dolphin. I was like, oh no, but it's rated PG.
Well, it must be because your dad took you to see Omega Man.
Yeah, right. That scarred me for life. Yeah. And here we are sneaking into R-rated movies when we're 15. So
I know Shari's still like trying to figure out how we saw this movie, and I was saying, you know what, Mrs. Metz, God bless her, Joe's mom. I think, I mean, she used to go to a lot of movies with us, and especially if it was like the R rating, and she would just be in there as a chaperone, and here we are, these good these giddy high school kids just like watching these films, and we're into the sci-fi elements and everything, and then then there's all scenes like with Alex the nurse and David the werewolf taking place, but yeah, I can't recall, but I'm sure that that's how we actually got to see this, because we would have only been 15 years old seeing this film.
Yeah. So she stayed, or she dropped you off and got you in somehow?
I mean, I don't recall with this film, but I mean, a lot of times she would actually go in there with us to watch the movies. Sometimes she would drop us off, but yeah.
It is
funny. Here's the other piece of it too. You remember Joe, the way he looked. He had that really fuzzy beard and everything.
Right.
So
like Matt. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So he was like 13 going on like 30. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So, that's why Matt could walk into any liquor store and get served because he looked like he was 105, even though he was 15. That little zero got put in there. Yeah.
No, look out! Here comes Zeus. Let him in.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
There was always something though at that, especially at that 25th Street theater, where you could kind of you could almost walk up with a note from your mom and get in. But then
I actually have nightmares about, there was the manager that worked at that
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
she was a blonde haired. She had really short hair. She wore these glasses, and she was very mean looking. And I used to say she was she was like the BEM, because she was just like so nasty. And it's like you would try to be nice to her, and she would just be so like, she would cut you off, and then she would like be like ID and just very rude and obnoxious.
I know who you mean. We had a nickname for her, but I won't say what it is.
Yeah, there you go.
It's not off color. It's just mean. So
anyway.
But we used to go in there. Nevertheless, we used to get in there for our movies all the time, even though she would forbid it.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, I want to welcome Liz. Liz is out there joining us from the UK. Welcome, Liz. Great to see you out there. I also see Greg is joining us. Greg, welcome to the show. Hope you're doing good, and we appreciate you being out there.
And I did see this one actually with my parents.
Oh, did you?
We used to go to the movies every Friday night.
Okay.
And that was like kind of it was almost like the date night. The whole family went out for a movie on a Friday night.
Nice.
We saw American Werewolf one of the times.
Now, to your point, you were bringing up something about as far as the makeup and werewolves. I mean, there were a lot of incarnations. I mean, we would see them on television shows. We would see them in movies. And a lot of times the way they would come across would be kind of like cheesy. I'm a big Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea fan, and I remember there was a couple of episodes where they actually did the kind of the werewolf scenario where one of having the transformation. I think it was Captain Crane, who was David Hedison, actually turned into a werewolf, and I think, even if I'm not mistaken, I think also with Richard Basehart, that happened as well too.
Really?
So yeah,
I didn't know it was a cure.
yeah, exactly. There was. They actually did it. Well, they thought there was a cure, and then the cure didn't work, and then they were really worried that if the cure didn't work, there is no cure. Shari's commenting, and I actually came across this earlier. This movie was actually released in the theaters in the U.S. on August 21st of 1981. So this was actually released on her birthday. It was her 20th birthday, which was kind of cool.
It was, John Landis wrote and directed it,
Yeah,
and
Animal
another,
House.
yes, Marx Brothers were a huge influence, but of course, Animal House was a huge influence too. I mean, and the Blues Brothers, the whole Belushi thing, Belushi,
Yeah.
Dan Aykroyd. In fact, I didn't realize until I was reading about this that the studio kind of begged Landis, can you do it with Aykroyd and Belushi, and he refused to do. He didn't want to do it with them.
Thank goodness he did not listen
I
to them
know.
in regards to that. He went with unknowns, and honestly, it was better. I mean, could you imagine?
Yeah,
It,
But going into it, of course, he was so known for his comedies. The
Sure.
Kentucky Fried Movie, Animal House, Blues Brothers. So you figure it's going to be a yuck fest or whatever, even though it's a werewolf movie, and it was a yuck fest, but in more ways than one.
Well, and the interesting thing about this film too was this was a project that he conceived his first draft of this film back in 1969, and he was trying to sell it to investors. And unfortunately, they said that it was going to be, it was too scary to be a comedy, and then it was too not serious enough to be a horror film. So pretty much, it was just kind of like it was not enough of one and not enough of the other. And then he couldn't sell him on it because of where he was as a filmmaker. And then as time kind of progressed and everything, and then to your point with the different movies that he became known for, and he actually had built up a reputable career, he was able to get funding for the film, and then the rest was history. And it was a financial success. I mean, it's $6 million budget, and I think it came in at $30 million at the U.S. box office, and about maybe 80 million worldwide at that time. So that was pretty impressive, actually.
Yeah, that's especially back then,
Yeah. I'm sorry, 62 million worldwide at the time. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Close on that.
Yeah. So, but I think that the mix of the horror and the comedy really was effective. It didn't really. What makes it effective and memorable is that it really doesn't blend all that well. Like for instance, we take Jaws, for instance, in '75. You have a lot of humor in that movie, and it's used at times to heighten the shock value. Somebody will say something funny and everybody laughs, and then the shark will jump out of the water and everybody screams, kind of thing. In this one, it's just a weird juxtaposition. Sometimes there's horror and comedy together in the film. And it's just such a strange. I don't even know if it entirely hangs. It's not a comfortable movie, And I think that's what really, because it really stayed with me. I thought about this movie for days after I saw it, and plus the kind of the inescapable tragedy, of the werewolf story. It's always doomed. You know what I mean? Right. There's no, except apparently in Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, because they can find a cure. But the movie, once you're a werewolf, that's it. There's no cure for lycanthropy. You're doomed to kill even your loved ones if you're because it's beyond your control. You're just in this frenzy when you're in your wolf form, and you have this bloodlust. As in this movie. I mean, we could just jump to the end and ruin the movie, but
don't do it, Ross. Brennan commented, I was just reading John Belushi snorted a whole bag of cocaine that Gerald Cassell from Devo bought during their first TV appearance on Saturday Night Live.
Really?
Oh, wow.
So Gerald Cassell was involved with that. That I did not know.
Christian saying, Sherry, I'm one day older than you.
Oh.
And Colin, welcome to the show. Good to see you out there. He said, I kept thinking it was 12:30 start. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. And usually we start a half hour late. So sorry, Colin. We were pretty on time tonight.
Colin is joining us from the UK. So we appreciate you being out there, Colin, as well as Liz. We know it's very late out there. So it's always, we really appreciate the support that we get from our viewers across the pond.
Where the film is set. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Stay off the moors.
Stay off the moors. Yeah.
Stick to the road.
No, and you know what? You're right. I mean, it's very tragic because with this, we know the background. I mean, it's like once a werewolf, always a werewolf, unless you terminate the process. So like watching this, you're almost like, or at least I was. I mean, you're almost like hoping maybe there will be something that will be like a quote unquote cure to help them, and it's just like inevitable that it's not going to actually happen. I want to throw a slide up real quick.
As with so much horror, you're just kind of circling the drain. You know what I mean? There's like that inevitable outcome. Yeah.
But there's David Naughton as David, and then Jenny Agutter as Alex, and then there's Griffin Dunn as Jack.
Yeah, he was in Martin Scorsese's After Hours. That was a rare lead for him. He's in that with Rosanna Arquette. Usually he played a supporting part, and then he got into producing and directing.
Yeah, he's done a lot of stuff behind the scenes in regards to his career. And again, it's crazy to think this is like this was filmed 42 years ago. I mean, it just blows my mind. And then John Woodine, who was
Woodine, yeah.
Theater actor, did a lot of theater and then also a lot of films, but he has a very impressive resume.
There was a very interesting subtext to this film that I never noticed before. I haven't seen it for a few decades probably, but I've seen it several times. And I never realized the fact that the characters are all Jewish. The leads.
Okay.
Not Jenny Agutter's character, but you've got David Kessler, you've got Griffin Dunn, who's Jack Goodman, and they're using words like, and I remember schmuck and putz and that sort of thing. And I didn't really think much about it. But then when the one nurse walks into the room, not Jenny Agutter, but the other nurse, they make a joke about him being circumcised.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
And then they have the hallucinations that he has. And at one point, these neo-Nazi guys bust into the house, gun down the whole family. And you see as they're shooting everything up on the mantle there is a menorah.
Okay, right. I didn't catch that.
So I'm trying to look for the thread in the movie, what this signifies. And it turns out the doctor mentions at a point, remember he picks up the phone and he says, well, what's the exact line? If I survived Rommel, I'm sure I could survive an evening with Roger Matheson. So he was in the war also. And you got to think, my grandfather was in World War II, and at that time, your late 50s, early 60s, if you were a veteran, you could have been the doctor's age in this film. So there's this whole thing, this whole level with this. I'm wondering if it ties into the war, the Holocaust, and then I'm thinking about the, in the werewolf movie, it's all about the violence you can't control. You got the beast within.
Sure.
And I'm wondering if it was just like kind of a subtext about this societal horror. Such as we're experiencing now. The whole world is at war, it seems almost, it's just, you can't, there's just atrocities, there's violence, and it's just a part, an uncontrollable part, it seems, that we can't suppress in our human nature. And I wonder, but it's John Landis, so who knows? He does everything for a laugh, but it's just the fact that he went to the trouble to kind of put these things in there. I wonder if there was like a larger point that he was trying to make with this, and I'm not quite sure if I digested it. Yeah,
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, I think you're going pretty deep, but the fact that he went out of his way to put these moments to be captured, you know what I mean? Almost like these trinkets. I would say, why not?
But and he himself is Jewish, so I don't know if there's what he was trying to put in there if there was another point to it.
Sure.
Even if it's like some kind of autobiographical secret, not that John Landis is secretly a werewolf or anything.
I knew that was coming. Oh boy.
But anyway, I found it interesting. Yeah.
No, those are great points, Ross.
I mean, I never noticed that before I watched it this time.
No, and I'm remembering those moments as you're describing them, and I didn't capture all of them, but now that you're mentioning it, it would make sense that there's some kind of bridge to all that. You know, he was potentially trying to make some kind of point through those references. So no, I definitely would not doubt that. Now, let me ask you a question. In regards to, do you recall seeing David Naughton in other roles besides this? Besides, you were talking about Dr. Pepper, and then also, obviously, this movie. But do you recall seeing him in other things, or no?
I can't remember. Was he in Hot Dog the movie?
He might have been.
Or am I thinking of Jeff East? Or are they both in it?
It's a possibility.
He may have been in Hot Dog the movie. He did a lot of stuff, but
you know what? He was in Hot Dog the movie.
There you go.
You're absolutely right. Good catch, Ross. Good catch.
Yeah, good catch. But you know, he didn't stay kind of in the top rank of the big movies, but he made a lot of movies.
Yeah, and I think he was more of like a character actor, and he did a lot of episodic television as well. I mean, he was in Melrose Place, he was in MacGyver, he did Law and Order. It seems like a lot of folks have done, the Law and Orders. Murder, She Wrote. So he definitely had his credentials in that. And then
he had a career. Yeah.
He had a career, exactly.
Yeah.
And then with Jenny Agutter, we knew her from Logan's Run. I mean, that was one of the things that we remember her from. And she started out young too as a child actress.
Right. The Railway Children, which I've never seen, the E. Nesbitt adaptation of the children's book. And apparently she returned in I don't know if it was a sequel or a remake later on where she played another character, or I'm not sure. But she was associated with that. But I remember from Nicholas Roeg's Walkabout, which was earlier in the 70s, before Logan's Run. Hot Dog, another classic. Yeah, Walkabout. There you go. Nicholas Roeg, she and her brother, the characters, get stranded in the Australian outback, and they befriend an Aborigine. And who said that about the thesis paper? Yeah, somebody's going to steal it, which is fine. Anyway, so that's what I kind of knew her from, other than Logan's Run. But she was in a lot of. She also had a good run. She's still, I think she's still acting. But she in the 70s and early 80s in particular, she was in a lot of stuff. I mean, high profile stuff that everybody saw.
Right.
She was in the Richard Chamberlain Man in the Iron Mask. Also,
I did not realize that. Okay.
Yeah.
Wasn't that in the 80s or? Was it
that late? Because Richard Chamberlain was always king of the miniseries. I guess it could have been into the 80s, because he also did
the Thornbirds, which was in the 80s.
He did Count of Monte Cristo.
Yep, Count of Monte Cristo. Yeah,
which was another Alexander Dumas.
Christian saying it was in the 70s. Okay, I'll go with that, Christian.
She was in Equus. She was in The Eagle Has Landed.
I know, and I was going to bring that up, and that how appropriate is that, because that's with the title and everything. So
I didn't see Captain America 2. Is that the Winter Soldier? Is that the second one?
I think so. We haven't seen that either.
There's too many of those, and then
there's a lot of those.
And they all interconnect, and I never. Forget about it.
It's out of it's enjoyable for the folks that like it, but it's really out of control. The what was it? The Eagle Has Landed. That was about. It was a fictional story about Winston, a plot to kidnap Winston Churchill. I think, is that what that was about? I think.
I don't recall. I knew it was World War II.
Yeah,
I'm sure, and a lot of big names in it.
Robert Duvall, Donald Sutherland was in it. Michael Caine. Yeah, like you said, the big names were a part of that.
I found it interesting that John Landis was a production assistant on Kelly's Heroes. I never knew that.
Oh, okay.
Talking about World War II movies, and he actually got the idea for American Werewolf supposedly while he was in Yugoslavia doing on-location shooting for Kelly's Heroes, because they had stumbled across these Romani people who were doing some kind of ritual so that the dead wouldn't rise or something. And that got him thinking about, I guess, gypsies and the old movies and everything. So he wrote this werewolf script. Yeah, that's the other thing. The movie kind of calls back to at times to the older films. You always have the pub where the guy wanders in and he'll say something, and usually everybody crosses themselves or something.
Right, right.
Silent. In every horror movie, and they've got the pentagram on the wall. I can't remember if it was a pentagram or a pentangle. Was it a
I thought it was a pentagram, wasn't it? Or
a
no?
pentacle? Yeah, a pentagram. It was just a star, right? There was no circle, right?
No, there was no circle.
Yeah, it was a pentagram, and the werewolf always had that in his palm. He could see that. Nobody else could see it, but he could see the pentagram in his palm, and he'd know that he had the lycanthropy. There you go.
Yeah, Lou.
Lou. You're all a bunch of monomaniacs.
There's another one. Let's see. Scott saying she most recently has been playing the Mother Superior on Call the Midwife. Oh, okay, cool.
I love Scott's avatar, by the way.
Yeah, that is cool.
It's the goat of Mendes. Baphomet.
The eyes, Rex. The eyes.
The eyes, Rex.
Wonder if Jeffrey is inspiration for the title from the war. No, I mean the Eagle has landed. I mean it's an appropriate title. I mean, in regards to the Space 1999 documentary, I mean it's just interesting that there has been a couple films, but with that though. But yeah, no, we're going to give an update about that too in regards to the movie a little later. So stay tuned about that. In regards to the location shooting for this film, though, they shot this in the Black Mountains in Wales, the moors.
Yeah,
which was kind of cool.
There's a lot of spooky stuff to come out of Wales. A lot of good supernatural fiction.
Have you ever been there, Ross?
Arthur Machen. No, I've never been to. There's a great book town there that I would love to visit. I think it's Hay-on-Wye. It's supposed to be like all bookstores.
Oh, okay.
I'd love to go to Wales. Yeah. Never been there.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Let's go to the back.
Let's stick to the road, Roy.
Yeah. No veering off, Ross. No shortcuts for you.
You gotta get to the book town, Roy.
We can make it in double quick time if we cut through.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing about, I talked about the transformations and how kind of excruciating they were in this and The Howling. The other thing in the 80s is that they allowed nudity, because in the old films, somebody dies and they're just, this is Lon Chaney in the Wolf Man. He's like this. You got him buttoned all the way up to here, You know what I mean? It's like no skin showing at all.
Right.
Well, it's less to make up too, so they only have to do the face. But anyway, and then again the gloves. But the in this film, when the werewolf dies, when the one that attacks him at the beginning, when they shoot him, they pan over, and of course he's back in his human form with the bullet holes in him.
Right.
And it's more real, quote unquote, realistic than the fact, it's like the Hulk. When the Hulk transforms, everything, that rips off of him, except he has these like amazing like denim pants.
They never break.
They might get a little frayed, but they're never gonna rip.
No. Those are censored genes, Ross. Liz commented, she said, yes, Hay-on-Wye is famous for the books.
Yeah.
And May also commented and said, I've always wanted to visit Hay-on-Wye.
We should have a group tour. Can we do this? Can we get a bulk discount, and we'll do a Roy's tie-dye trip to Hay-on-Wye. European tour.
There we go. We should look into that.
Yeah.
We'll definitely do that.
We can drink some dark beer.
Bruce Banner wears Route 66.
Well, I think the time time has come to have a realistic Hulk movie. We want to see those pants like blow.
Oh, hang on a second, Ross. I think the suits are starting to make the rounds. Here they come, Ross.
I think we're ready for that in 2024, 2023. Put that CGI to work.
There you go. And speaking of transformations, I remember watching that film. I think we were busting a gut in the theater as every time we would see Jack, because unfortunately, Jack like David, well, Jack unfortunately had been not only been bitten, but he had been ripped apart and shredded by the werewolf, and he unfortunately had died. But when Jack comes back and he's pretty much taunting David, he comes with each time that he comes back, he's essentially decomposing as time progresses, and it was almost like the ongoing joke with that.
I know, and he was decomposing very quickly. It made me wonder how long it would take for a body to get skeletal like that.
Liz, wasn't there a shower scene in the film? Yeah, Liz, we,
Yes,
we talked about that earlier. Sherry actually had that covered. You're absolutely right. Or uncovered, right? Oh, yeah.
it's worth
That whole
repeating,
thing
though.
with Jack was great.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess he wasn't embalmed, because again, Jewish funeral, there's no embalming. But I don't know that you would decompose that quickly.
No,
I don't know with the human body, especially since he was buried.
right.
It wasn't like he was left out in the elements. So they just wanted to do some gross effects
Which
to
were
show.
good.
And especially since how long, I was trying to think of this. How long do you think the plot of the movie was supposed to, like, what was the time span for the movie? Because basically he goes into the hospital and he's in there for, what did they say, 6 weeks or something? Or
Yeah.
not 6 weeks. It wasn't the full, it wasn't the moon hadn't gone full yet. So it was less than a month, I guess.
It would have had to have been right, exactly.
But then he meets, Jenny. They go back he's released. He goes back to her place, and then he has his transformation. And then is it the next night he goes on the rampage and everything, or how long of a time span are we talking about here?
Well, I think it was at least 3 weeks that he was in the hospital. And then
Right.
what happens is Jack visits him in the hospital, and he is essentially telling him David thinks he's going crazy, and that Jack isn't really there, and Jack is assuring him that he is, and he's warning him essentially that there is going to be a full moon. I think within like 2 nights, and
Okay.
he pretty much has to take his life, because if he doesn't, what's going to happen is David is going to be on a killing rampage, because he's been bitten by the werewolf, and the only way to end the curse is for him to kill him, essentially commit suicide or kill himself, and he doesn't want to hear it. And he thinks he's again going crazy. So yeah, and then things progress in there. So it definitely has to be within like a 28-day period of time, right?
Right. But I was trying to figure out what their relationship was between, Jenny Agutter there, Alex Price, and David, who was David Naughton. Like, how long were they involved that they had this, this love for one another? You know what I mean? They had just kind of been attracted, and was it like a 48-hour relationship or something?
Yeah, I mean, it really happens very quickly if you think about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And she's proclaiming her love to him and everything. But yeah, and she even says when he's being discharged, because she offers for him to come back to her, what was it, her flat. And she even said that she's not in the it's not something that she does very regularly. You know what I mean?
All right, you're right. The collecting Americans or something, or collecting Yanks or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no.
Oh, that's okay, Liz.
No, it's okay, Liz.
So maybe it was 72 hours, because like you said, it was 2 days before the full moon.
Yeah, it wasn't very long. I mean, I think he was in the hospital for at least a couple weeks.
Well, there was that too. So I guess they got to know each other when he was in the hospital. Then they had their consummation, and then they had, they were together for, they have powerful pheromones, and they're together for they could Jack and David and Jack, when they're talking, they reference the Wolfman, and they talk about Claude Rains, and I believe they do anyway. See, I've been watching other werewolf movies, so I'm probably conflating things. But don't they mention Claude Rains as the father in the Wolfman killing?
I think so. I think you're right about that.
Because it comes up that the werewolf is always killed by the person he loves, kind of thing.
Right.
But I thought there's more resonance to the old, Lon Chaney film, because Claude Rains plays his father. You know what I mean? It's kind of, what kind of tragedy plays out there. Whereas here, it's kind of like they have like a one-night stand, basically.
Yeah.
And she never actually kills him. It's like, but it's a little bit of the Beauty and the Beast thing, except, there's that moment of hesitation there where you're not sure which way the film's going to play out at the end, before, it ends. I don't know if we want to say how it ends, because some people may not have seen it. And I know Colin Curlis, for instance, is going to see it on the big screen in a few days. They're showing it there, I guess, in Truro.
Colin, you never saw the movie?
I don't know if he's seen it or not, but he's going to see it on the big screen.
I thought he had seen it already.
All right.
I'm pretty confident after 42 years and a half, I think we're pretty much safe for us.
There are a lot of movies I haven't seen from 40 years ago. And I put my fist right through the screen if you spoiled them.
You mean what actually happened were they? And then they
don't say it. The 29th, yeah. Have you seen it before, Colin? Before we spoil it. See, I didn't see the 2010 one. Rick Baker did the makeup design for that one.
No, I didn't see it either.
Yeah, but they wound up CGing it.
Okay.
So that's basically where he just quit. I mean, he didn't quit the film, but he quit. He says, that's it. I'm not doing any more movies.
He's retired. Yeah, Rick Baker's retired.
Yeah, he just said, CG changed everything. The whole joy of it was doing the physical effects, the models, the makeup, and figuring out how to do these things. And as soon as it became, as soon as they threw out his work or went over his work, well, what happened was with the Wolfman, from what I understand, is they changed directors and they only have 3 weeks to do the movie or something like that. Wow. So, or 3 weeks of post-production. There was something they're a very tight schedule. So they had to get rid of the speed it up by using CG. So they didn't use his makeup necessarily, just his design. And he said, okay, fine. And he got an Oscar for it, I guess, because he got a whole shelf full of Oscars. But he just saw that as the writing on the wall. He was like 64 or something like that. And he said, I'm just going to, if they want me on as a consultant or something, I'll consider it. But I'm not going to pour my soul into these things if they're not going to, appreciate my work. And that's what I would really,
and it's such a shame because, I mean, to your point, I mean, he won the Academy Award for that, which we were talking about earlier. And he was nominated at least 10 other times in which he won some of those awards for different films as well. It's a shame that art of filmmaking is almost been, become outdated, so to speak. You know what I mean? And because again, we've talked about this on the show many a times. I definitely have an appreciation for CGI. I think it can definitely enhance effects. It can be very well done with what it is used for. But I just don't believe that it is something that needs to be done throughout the entire movie. I mean, there's something to be said about practical effects where when you're watching a film, you're like, okay, this is believable. I can see that this is actually happening. With CGI, it's gone from like here all the way out to here, that it's like when you see these things that are happening, you're like, yeah, okay, that's just not real. We know that that's what they did. It's computer effects.
Well, and you can just do whatever you want to, so you don't get things like the suggestion. I mean, I'm not saying that they can't do it and that people don't do it, but the temptation is to show too much because you can.
Right.
And sometimes you need those shadows or you need that atmosphere to create a kind of a psychological dread, and it makes it more powerful. Just because you can see, you don't need to see everybody doing everything.
No, you don't, because when something is implied, it actually makes it that much more interesting. I mean, like when we talked about Alien, the film Alien, the first one, the 1979 classic. I mean, with that, it was a pure horror film, and you really don't see the alien too many times. I mean, it's very suggested. It's like in the shadows, and it's kind of your imagination can go in a lot of different directions with that, which sometimes is for the better. Claudia, you know what? I was actually looking for an interview with him in Starlog magazine. Now I know he was in Starlog number 11, and that's the Starlog magazine that actually has all the monsters on the cover. It's one of the earlier issues. I was actually looking for a Starlog magazine that interviewed him in regards to this movie, but I wasn't coming up with anything. maybe I missed it, but I know, of course, in Ross, you probably remember Fangoria. That was covering a lot with this film because
Yeah.
that was more of the producers of Starlog magazine. That was their, their monster.
Right. So there's an example of a magazine I couldn't even open because I was just too squeamish. I didn't even want to look at the cover of Fangoria.
Yeah, I never got the Fangoria. I mean, I collected the Starlogs. I mean, that was my, something I look forward to literally every 2 months. But in regards to that,
I can understand why they would be interested in Baker though. Yeah, in makeup.
Liz commented there was a good werewolf episode in Doctor Who,
Really?
Tooth and Claw. The werewolf was probably CGI, but it was impressive. Liz, was that an earlier episode?
It had to be a later one if it's CGI.
Yeah, if it had CGI, it was probably later.
So they see. I haven't seen Dog Soldiers. I haven't kept up. I haven't seen Dog Soldiers. I haven't seen Silver Bullet. There are werewolf movies out there I've not seen, but I was pretty pumped for this one and for The Howling, having them both be out in '81. I like this one better because it had more of a traditional approach to the story. Although The Howling is a very interesting movie also for all kinds of weird subtext. And I just rewatched it. And there are all these in-jokes in there that I totally missed when I saw it in the theater in '81 because it was before I really, it was a kind of a transitional work for Joe Dante. He wasn't real famous yet like he was after Gremlins, and so you saw his troupe, the guys he would bring back for every movie, like Kevin McCarthy and Toby Kenneth Tobey, the guy who was in The Thing from Another World. He's always in them, and Dick Miller and all these guys, and they had cameos by Forrest Ackerman and Roger Corman, and there were all these things I didn't pick up on when I'd seen it before. So it's a fun movie.
Collinson, I found The Howling more comedy, lots.
Well, it's definitely tongue in cheek, but it's also, there's a lot of dread in it also, and it's dark also. Yeah, it's funny, but it's a strange movie, and like another strange werewolf.
Who was the leads in that movie?
Well, Dee Wallace was.
It was Dee Wallace. Okay,
Yeah,
I was thinking, when you said The Howling, immediately I'm thinking of Cujo, and I was thinking of her, but
exactly,
I wasn't sure.
Exactly. Okay. It was before E.T. and Patrick McNee.
Patrick McNee
gets second billing.
Yeah,
and there are a lot of people in it. Slim Pickens is in it.
Slim Pickens, oh my god.
Yeah,
that's funny.
But at any rate, the makeup effects. And face it though, they got Benicio del Toro to be in the remake of the Wolfman. And do you really need makeup to make Benicio del Toro a werewolf? I mean, Rick Baker basically said that anyway. He said it's not like I had to really do a lot of work on him. Oh, it's like getting Jack Nicholson for The Shining. Hey, let's get a guy who goes nuts to be in The Shining. Oh yeah, this is going to be who are we going to get to act that part? I don't know. Let's get Jack Nicholson because he's just nuts to begin with. Yeah,
it's funny you're saying that because we were, like I was saying about we were watching Amityville, and James Brolin is the lead in that opposite Margot Kidder, and essentially he's having that type of progression where he's kind of losing it. And that was kind of when he was talking about his career and everything, he said that was like really at the beginning where he was really starting to get into those type of roles where he was, character driven, and he was trying to show a progression of madness. I mean, before that, really, if you think about it, James Brolin was doing, what was it? Marcus Welby, MD. I mean, from 69 to 73, 74. So he was just really starting to get into his career. I mean, he was only like, 37, 38 years old at that time. And Margot Kidder had just come off of Superman. So,
oh wow! You know what? I just realized that both Amityville, the first two Amityville movies, had like Barbara Streisand husbands. Oh no! Wait! Chris Christopherson wasn't married to her. He was only in A Star Is Born with her.
Yeah,
she was with Elliot Gould before, is what it was. Yes. I don't know if he ever actually got married. Now, if Elliot Gould had been an Amityville horror movie, now we'd have something to talk about. But as it is, we'll just cut that part out.
Elliot Gould match. Oh boy, yeah.
He could play a werewolf.
There you go.
They should have made a werewolf movie with Elliot Gould and Donald Sutherland back in the 70s. That would have been great.
And Donald Pleasance.
Donald Pleasance.
He would have stole the movie.
With a special appearance by Gene Wilder. I would so pay to see that.
No, let me ask you.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question about this film, though. Now, I mean, we didn't jump to the end on this at all, but did you feel like it was abrupt? I mean, there was a lot of buildup. I mean, I enjoyed this film. This film is a classic.
Yeah.
But it's kind of going. It's got the momentum. It draws you in there, and I'm not going to summarize the whole plot. You know, you can relax before you, because I know you're thinking that.
I'm
But
going to transform, Roy.
you're gonna give me the Mr. McGee speech, Mr. McGee.
Yeah, right.
But no, seriously. In regards to that, obviously, there's the whole thing with them. They make it, you know, where they go to the to that pub, and it's kind of inferred that something obviously is going on in the town, and they want to really get the flock out of there because of the way they're being treated. They don't listen to the warning.
The slaughtered lamb. Yeah.
The slaughtered lamb, yeah. And then they go off the beaten path, and then of course that's where they encounter the werewolf.
You're doing the plot.
I am doing the plot. But I'm summarizing the plot. But my point is, it leads into all of that, and it's going in a certain direction where it's going to be inevitable. But when you're watching it, you're really hoping that there is going to be a cure. Something's going to happen where they're going to be able to really help David get out of this mess. And it kind of drags on a little bit. And then of course there's the transformations. We've talked about how those transformations were really long and very detailed. And obviously Landis wanted this to be showcased because of the incredible effects that, visual effects that Rick Baker had done with the makeup and everything. And he really wanted to give that a lot of attention.
Mm-hmm.
And after he goes on his jaunt through the whole city and, essentially kills a lot of people and winds up waking up in the zoo and then he makes his way back.
Right. Altered states. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You're almost feeling like he's going to maybe have a chance where, especially when the doctor contacts Alex and says, you need to get David here because he's gone to find out what actually happened. And then he's finding out there's this big cover up. And then what happens is, they're on their way, but he just kind of snaps when he hears that, people have been killed overnight. And he's like, you're not going to be able to help me. And it's like, then it starts to go in a different direction. It's very, I don't know. It's almost like it was very abrupt, that part of it. And then there's the whole chase with everything. And I hate to go right to the ending, but the ending is super abrupt. I mean, it just
it goes so over the top. It reminds me of, and this predates it, and I know what you're going to say, by the way, it reminds me of Life Force.
Life Force? Are you talking about the film with Patrick Stewart?
just the way everything goes out. Exactly. I knew you were going to say that. So just the way everything goes out of the way and goes out over the top in Piccadilly Circus, and there's that huge body count at the end, and the violence is so extreme. It's kind of like the Blues Brothers, but with blood, with decapitations, like the pile-ups with the cars. It's so unnecessary, but
it really is.
Landis really ramps it up. Oh, hi guys.
Hey Nick, what's going on? Good to see you out there.
Yeah. So,
but anyway, the UK as well too. We are well represented tonight from overseas. We appreciate you being out there, as well as in the US, as well as in Canada. It's an international show. Yeah. We're internationally represented tonight, folks, and we appreciate that.
Yes.
But go ahead, Ross.
But yeah, you get the over the top violence at the end, beginning with a decapitation and just going on from there. And it's not necessarily funny, except it's so over the top that it kind of gets a little uneasily funny.
Yeah.
But the whole time, you have that inexorable pull of the tragedy. As like I said, as in so many of the monster movies, especially werewolf movies, Oh yeah, the underground was super creepy. Yeah, and that was one of the best sequences, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with the escalator.
Yep, because you're thinking he's gonna the one guy is gonna get away, and he doesn't get away. Yes, Colin Landis also did Michael Jackson's Thriller video, which is still great to today.
With Rick Baker.
Rick Baker
did the makeup. Yeah. And Yeah, so Landis has tried this kind of thing again. This is the most effective. Well, Thriller is kind of classic. I mean, you can't say Thriller's not classic. But he tried Innocent Blood. He tried one with a vampire and mobsters. Tried to mash up the vampire and the mobsters. I've not seen the movie, but apparently it's not as uh, not as successful as this one in combining the comedy and the horror for most. But what were you talking about?
No, I was just saying about how. No, I agree with everything you're saying. My point was that it was just very abrupt, though. Just how everything just kind of just like.
Well, it happened very quickly at the end. Yeah. And I never, I don't know if I really thought that the other times that I watched it, but I watched it this time. It was striking to me how quickly it goes from the time they're in that theater to the ending of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, Randy saying that wacky adult movie in the theater was strangely awkward.
Yeah. I know.
It was like he was just trying to get into a place that is I don't know. But I'll say secluded.
But there's a parallel again with The Howling. They have this whole thing with an adult theater at the beginning. But it's different. That's I don't know. But it's interesting how they were making both of these movies at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard it was pretty bad.
I didn't see that film.
He also did a Burke and Hare film about the grave robbers, which I've never seen. Apparently Simon Pegg and Andy Serkis are in it.
Okay.
It's a dark comedy. I don't know if it veers into horror or not, but they're resurrectionists. They're the ones that dig up the bodies and sell them to science.
Now here's a question: did you think that Alex wasn't really buying into what was going on? She thought he was kind of like out there with everything, essentially hallucinating or just hearing things and trying to recover and not having maybe all of his senses to 100%. But when the doctor comes to see her towards the end and says, to bring him in, and he's concerned, it's almost like she's starting to buy into the whole theory of everything that, David was talking about. And when he runs, pretty much, he's trying to get arrested and nobody, the Bobby won't arrest him, and pretty much telling him to get on his way and not to listen to Alex. And he runs off. And it's at that point, it seems like she has made the switch as far as believing what he's actually going through. And finally, when, he's cornered and she's able to jump through all the hoops, so to speak, to get to that alley, she knows that is him. And it's just how all of that just happened so quickly. It was just very abrupt, I thought.
I do think it's far-fetched about him trying to get arrested and not being able to do so. It's kind of like an O. Henry story, how all the characters in the O. Henry stories are always trying to get arrested and never can until there's some irony at the end where they wind up in jail when they don't want to be. But I mean, he could have punched the guy out, or that's what Cary Grant does in North by Northwest, punches out the cop.
Oh, right.
I don't know. He could have done a lot of stuff.
Christian said John Landis' career went downhill after the Twilight Zone movie. I forgot about that whole
I didn't even bring that up, but it's true.
Yeah. And that was that 85? That whole thing with Vic Morrow and everything, and with
we were still in high school.
No, you're right. That was 82.
82.
That was wait a minute.
Or 83. It was 83 because 82 we had Poltergeist and E.T. I think 83 might have been Twilight Zone.
No, you're right. It was. So you know what, Ross? That's a 40-year-old movie. Yeah, it's the 40th anniversary for that.
You want to see something really scary?
Yeah.
There's a movie I've not seen in decades.
We should cover Twilight Zone the movie. Now I'm okay. Well, they do the tribute for Nightmare at 20,000 Feet with William Shatner with John Lithgow. They also do It's a Good Life, because they have Bill Mumy actually has a cameo in that film,
and Kevin McCarthy's
in that
because
movie.
Joe Dante directed that sequence. Right.
And then also oh my god, and Kathleen Quinlan, who I pretty much like, is growing up, I had like such a childhood crush on her. I just thought she was like amazing. So yeah, she was in that movie. She did a 1978 film called The Promise with Stephen Collins, which was really, really good. And that was the first time I'd actually seen her. But yeah, just that would be something to cover. You know what we should do? This is what we should do. We should cover, and I think they did kick the can. Well, it wasn't called.
That was the Spielberg segment.
Yes. We should do those 3 episodes of Twilight Zone, and then what we can do is we can discuss the movie
at the same time. Do them in like one show.
Maybe do it 2 shows. Do the 3 episodes one week, and then the following week do the movie.
Because there's bound to be like some cross reference when we're talking about them. That's why I'm curious. Like if we should just talk about the movie but watch the episodes, and then I don't know.
Well, we could tie it in
all at once. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But I
have mixed feelings about the movie, as I think most people do.
Yeah,
there were some segments were stronger than others. Yeah, and none of them really matched the. Well, I thought the John Lithgow segment was pretty good.
Yeah, it was.
but yeah, as far as matching the kind of resonance of the TV series, it never really did that. Yeah.
You know, and you know, it's crazy to think too, Ross, is at that time it was only like a 20-year span between the television series and the movie.
That is crazy, because I thought, what are they making a Twilight Zone movie for? That show was forever ago.
Yeah,
it's only 20 years. Yeah,
it was only 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that in November. Yeah, Nick's Jenny Agutter being my favorite, and also from Logan's Run. Yeah, absolutely. Randy said one of the film's most remarkable aspects is its ability to seamlessly transition between horror and comedy. Yeah, totally agree about. You're absolutely right. Thanks, Christian. Yeah, it is 83. So yeah, we could do it as the 40th anniversary celebration. So yeah, we'll plan on that for some time in November. We'll do that. Brennan said Landis recently did a coffee table book on classic horror movies. He also does regular commentaries on Dante's Trailers from Hell website. Oh, interesting.
Oh, does he? Okay, because I know Dante has that. I thought it was on. Yeah, I think his thing's on YouTube or something. I've seen some of those. The Joe Dante Trailers from Hell.
Oh, good point, Christian. Burgess Meredith. That's right. He was the narrator in the movie.
Yeah.
Yep. And Matt, I'll throw this up. There was the incredible transformation after the zoo scene where he changed into that woman's coat.
Yeah.
He
steals the balloons.
The balloons. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What a crazy movie. You know, the way it veers between comedy and horror.
It does. It's you know. And then there's, you know, when she's actually going down the alley.
Yeah.
Talk about the eyes, right?
Right.
Now, let me ask you a question. Do you think if they hadn't killed David, do you think he would have attacked her?
Absolutely.
I agree. Yep.
Yeah. And I think that was part of the point. Yeah.
There he is.
You know, because the werewolf is, you know, I mean, I suppose there are probably other stories where the werewolf, you know, but I wouldn't feel like it was a genuine werewolf story if the werewolf allowed the human compassion to be tapped into. You know what I mean? Because the whole point is you have no control over yourself when you're in that. You know, the whole superego or whatever is gone, and that's like totally id. You're a predator at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Mr. Hyde. You know.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then you know, she's crying, and you know, he's laying there, and then the next thing you know, they go to the credits and they're playing the music. And it's like, what just happened here?
And of course it's Blue Moon, so it's like, you know, yeah, like you're not totally, you haven't totally absorbed what's going on, and it's just like this totally bonkers choice of a song.
Yeah, agreed, Colin. It ended too abruptly.
Yeah,
at that point, what more was there to say? I mean, to be true, but they could have. I think they could have done a little bit more with that.
Well, there's something to be said, at least for it being lean and concise, because there's so many movies that really outstay their welcome.
Sure.
And I'm just loving Halloween here and seeing all these movies that I love that are all like 90 minutes or less. It's like, yes, the days when a movie could be 90 minutes and be good.
It's not about the quantity. It's not about the quantity, Ross. It's about the quality.
Instead of 2 hours and 50 minutes, it'd be awful. Although I am looking forward to the new Martin Scorsese movie, which is supposed to be, I think, more like 3.5 hours.
2 hours and 50 minutes of the Indiana Jones movie, Ross.
It's gonna be like Lawrence of Arabia. Oh, the Indiana Jones movie was interminable. Oh, worst movie of the year.
Oh man. What a letdown. That was a letdown.
No, I don't want to influence you, Roy.
No. I told you how I felt when I came out of that theater. I was depressed.
I was very depressed. Yeah.
In regards to Landis, though, some of the things that he his remorse about this film, like I think I was telling you earlier about the extended sequence, he wished, looking back, he was saying about wanting to have cut or trimmed the transformation sequence. He also had edited down the intimate sequence between David and Alex, and one of the comments that he made was, that he wished that could have been a little bit longer, I guess, to show the passion between them. The other thing was, in regards to there was a sequence, I guess, where David, as the werewolf, was going after like a homeless person, and pretty much that was cut out. And the other thing that he regretted was there was a sequence with Jack where Jack is actually goes to get something to eat, and he's like eating toast. And as he's eating the toast, it like comes through his throat and it falls out. It doesn't go down.
Well, he does actually eat the toast, so they must have cut that out.
Yeah. So they so for censorship and what have you. So those were some of his regrets, which
that's some pretty damn good makeup though, because it is totally gross.
It really is. It totally is.
But it's like Dawn of the Dead level gross, but it's but the things that they're bantering about it are very funny. So it's very, you don't know what to do. I don't know whether to laugh or throw up.
So what about the music, Ross?
It's just like Animal House. Oh, do we? All right, we're on to the music already. Okay, very good. Because we never even mentioned the fact that Frank Oz was in the thing.
Frank Oz was in the film, and we did not give him a nod. And he was the character of Frank Oz was oh my god,
was he with the embassy or?
Yeah, I think that's who he was. He was tied to. In thinking back about that,
because he had played the corrections officer in Blues Brothers. Landis is the Blues Brothers. I think they were friendly. Yeah,
because he's essentially the one that's trying to get him out of there, or trying to
right,
work his magic, so to speak. The political aspects of the whole thing, because they're again two Americans that are in England, and they're not on their home turf when all this happens.
Yeah, and Miss Piggy and Kermit get a cameo, because Frank Oz did Miss Piggy, and Yoda and Grover, but you can always hear that in his voice. It's very funny to see this. It just doesn't really match up with what you imagine. So anyway, so Frank Oz.
Yeah, no, thanks for bringing him up.
Yeah, we don't want to
diss Frank.
We want to snub Frank in our discussion of An American Werewolf in London.
No, absolutely.
And then he went on to do, he directed too. He did Little Shop of Horrors actually, and Dirty Rotten Scoundrels and some other movies.
Yeah, he had quite a career, of different roles actually.
Yeah, and he's still voicing Yoda, I guess.
Yep, I was just gonna say that's the big one. That's the big one. Hey, you know what? This has nothing to do with movies or anything like that, but indirectly it does. So anyway, very sad this year. Greg Jean, who was an incredible, especially we talked about Greg Jean in regards to special effects. I mean, Close Encounters of the Third Kind and everything. In regards to model making and special effects and his career and everything. What they've been doing this weekend is they were doing an auction from his collection, and it was done through Heritage, and you can actually view it online if you do a search on it. And his collection pretty much was being auctioned off to different individuals. And today the X-Wing from Star Wars was auctioned off. The model that was flown, the X-Wing by Luke Skywalker, $2.6 million it went for. It's incredible. A lot of Star Trek items from the classic series were auctioned off as well. Space 1999 fans, of course, I want to put that out there. He had the spacesuit of Commander Koenig and Dr. Russell, Martin Landau's, and Barbara Baines. In fact, David Hirsch at one time owned the Martin Landau spacesuit, the Commander Koenig spacesuit, but they had done some kind of trade or whatever. So yeah, and so far as of before the X-Wing was sold off, I think it was up to almost $3 million worth of items had been auctioned off. It's crazy though, but really, really obscure stuff. But just wanted to throw that out there. But anyway, Ross, you were saying in regards to we're going to the music and
okay, onto the music. Elmer, there he is. Elmer Bernstein, no relation to Leonard Bernstein, by the way. Bernstein said his name Stein. Bernstein said his name Steen. So they were kind of known as East Coast Bernstein and West Coast Bernstein. Elmer Bernstein did take some lessons with Aaron Copland, though, who was friends with Bernstein. He's fondly remembered for a number of his film scores. He did the music for The Ten Commandments. He did the music for The Magnificent Seven and for To Kill a Mockingbird. I guess at a point he ran into some problems with the House Un-American Activities and was blacklisted to an extent. So he was doing some B movies. Apparently, he had leftist politics, but what they were trying to come after him for is he wrote some reviews that turned up in a communist magazine or something. So that's what they kind of persecuted him for. But as a result, he did music for films like Robot Monster and Catwomen of the Moon. Before, ironically though, because Cecil B. DeMille and John Wayne were on the other side of the political spectrum, but they really liked him and they used him. So he wrote the music for Ten Commandments and for Cecil B. DeMille's The Buccaneer and for a lot of John Wayne movies in the 60s and 70s. So you see, people can work together even if they have different views.
Sure.
You're working on something larger than yourself, when you do these things, and you can be friends even if you don't agree with each other.
As it should be.
As it should be. I mean, come on, you're making movies, and just like Roy and me, it's like.
I was waiting, Ross. If you hadn't said that, I would have thought you were a
So he's also pioneering and introducing kind of jazz into the movies. He wasn't the first composer, but there was something very much in the air at that time. Alex North did the music for Streetcar Named Desire. And around the same time, Elmer Bernstein did the music for Man with the Golden Arm with Frank Sinatra. And he did the music for Sweet Smell of Success. And Henry Mancini started, coming to prominence, and Duke Ellington had been writing some film scores, but Elmer Bernstein was one of the first to really use jazz as a character, as an underscore. You know what I mean? It wasn't just in the background at a sleazy bar somewhere. It was right. Kind of to describe characters and moods and situations and that sort of thing. So he did that also, in addition to the orchestral stuff that he was doing. I mentioned The Blacklist. Later in life, he kind of, the whole scoring films with an orchestra kind of started to wane in the 60s, and popular music started to become more ascendant. We all know about Alfred Hitchcock's, Bernard Herrmann's conflict with Alfred Hitchcock, as Hitchcock bowed to the studios wanting a more popular sound to his movies, and they got rid of Bernard Herrmann, fired Bernard Herrmann. Well, that kind of thing was happening to a lot of people. And John Williams is always credited kind of as like the big savior, because his movies were so successful
Right.
suddenly, all these guys got a new lease on life. So that Miklos Rozsa, Bernard Herrmann, Elmer Bernstein, we're all getting good projects again toward the end of their lives, or at least getting recognized by, people had grown up with their scores, like Martin Scorsese, for instance, picked up Bernard Herrmann for Taxi Driver. Martin Scorsese picked up Elmer Bernstein for his remake of Cape Fear, which was basically arranged from the original score by Bernard Herrmann for the first version of that. He did Bringing Out the Dead, and he did at least a draft for Gangs of New York. The score got thrown out, but he did Age of Innocence for Scorsese. So he was still around and active, but it was largely John Landis that rescued him. Aside from John Williams, just kind of creating the zeitgeist that made it possible. John Landis was the one that physically got Elmer Bernstein working on these comedies in the mid-70s and totally reinvented him, just like how Leslie Nielsen suddenly became a big deal once he discovered comedy.
Sure.
It's kind of like that with Elmer Bernstein. So suddenly he was involved scoring Animal House and Stripes and Ghostbusters because Landis and Ivan Reitman were always working together. So he did Airplane, in fact. So he did
those movies that you're describing are all within that time frame. It's like 1981, 82, 83, 84.
Right.
It's
So that got him to the point where, he started getting picked up for things like Heavy Metal and Black Cauldron. And, he could diversify again. And Scorsese, hired him. And so his last film was Far From Heaven, which I can't remember the year for that. But he got nominated for an Oscar for that. His only Oscar, oddly, strangely enough, for all of the things he ever scored, was for Thoroughly Modern Millie, the musical with Julie Andrews, back in the 60s, like 1967. This is the guy who did the 10 Commandments, the Magnificent Seven, and To Kill a Mockingbird. And what's he win for? Thoroughly Modern Millie. But that's the Oscars period. He did over 150 film scores, and he did 80 television scores. For TV, he did the theme for everybody remembers the National Geographic theme.
Oh, sure, of course.
And as soon as you find out that he wrote it, you go, oh, of course, because it sounds a lot like the Magnificent Seven,
right?
in its way, has that same mood. Oh, and of course, you remember Marlboro cigarettes, the commercials, the Marlboro Man. They lifted that right out of his Magnificent Seven film score. So he did okay for himself, Elmer.
I'm just talking about all this. I mean, we're going to have to go back, and we're just going to have to we're going to have to do a show that just talks about different even like commercial themes. I'm hesitant because I know.
Here we go again. Here we go again, folks. Another 5-part episode because we keep getting shut down.
Oh, that was a classic. That was a classic night, though. Oh my goodness, that was so much fun.
As long as you don't pull your account, I'm up for it.
Yeah, no, I'll have to be very careful on where we're broadcasting, but I think it was fun though.
And there's a lot of popular music in the film too. Elmer Bernstein's music was used largely in the hallucinations and some of the suspenseful scenes, but what we remember is the different incarnations of Blue Moon. They have the Sam Cooke version and the version with the Bobby Vinton during the opening credits, and the Marcells and the closing credits. And you had Van Morrison, and you had Creedence Clearwater Revival. Bad Moon Rising, Moon Dance.
Wow.
So it's tongue in cheek. John Landis's choice of what would be in this jukebox of Moon songs for the werewolf.
So much good stuff. And he's still alive, isn't he?
No, he died.
Oh,
Elmer Bernstein or John Landis? John Landis is still alive, of course.
John Landis is still around.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He's I forget what he's doing now, but not doing Animal House or anything like that. But yeah.
No, in fact, there were some comments, and I didn't brush upon them earlier, just about the sequel to this movie. I did not see the sequel.
Yeah, he wasn't involved. He was not involved with it.
And I heard it was pretty awful. I guess it was an American Werewolf in, what was it, in Paris?
In Paris, right.
Yeah. Did you see it?
No, and it was not well reviewed. Yeah.
Yeah.
He had nothing to do with that.
Nah.
He had a long friendship with Rick Baker, though. On his first film, which really didn't get distributed, it was called Schlock, and Rick Baker wore the gorilla suit in the movie. Rick Baker had this whole sub career of dressing up as a gorilla, because he was dressed as the gorilla in the '76 King Kong. That was Rick Baker in the suit.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah.
No, and I know he's credited not only as a special effects makeup artist, but also as an actor too.
Yeah. So. And he was in The Incredible Shrinking Woman with Lily Tomlin. Again, He gets to dress up in the ape costume in that film. So there you go.
Wow.
Yeah, his first paid job was for The Exorcist. Actually,
I did read that
he was assisting Dick Smith on The Exorcist.
Yes. Yeah, which is kind of cool. That kind of ties into some stuff. So yeah.
He did the makeup for It's Alive.
Yeah.
One of his proudest achievements was Harry and the Hendersons. He really liked how the Sasquatch turned out. And we mentioned Thriller.
Thriller, yeah. I mean, he did the the Werecat for Michael Jackson.
Yeah, and he's a legend. I mean, Rick Baker's a legend. He did an American Werewolf in London at the same time that Rob Bottin did The Howling. He's the guy who did the makeup for The Thing, the remake of The Thing with Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell.
Yeah,
and that was at the same time, like you said.
And he did the effects for Twilight Zone movie. So, but it's interesting because rewatching The Howling, I see in the end credits that Rick Baker is credited as an advisor on the film. And it's because Rob Bottin was his assistant on American Werewolf in London, and he left to go do the effects on The Howling. So it was kind of, they both had a hand in both films to some extent.
Yeah, no, it's very cool that they actually had that really cool working relationship. Brandon said Landis had a small role in Battle for the Planet of the Apes.
No, there you go.
I didn't even, And Christian said John Landis started as a stuntman. He said he's in Once Upon a Time in the West.
Really? Wow.
Interesting. Did not know that. And Matt said don't forget about Stripes.
Right, Stripes. Stripes is a great score. Yeah.
So yeah,
Elmer Bernstein.
Good stuff. But thanks.
That's one film where his music is really allowed to come forward and be heard front and center. It doesn't get kind of lost in the manner it does in Ghostbusters or whatever, where the popular songs, kind of drown it. Or this film, where it kind of gets lost with all the popular songs.
Yeah. And it's a shame too that, I don't know, there's so many artists that have passed, and, whether it be musical or, production artists or even actors. I mean, it's just, I know it's inevitable, but it's just, there's so much talent out there, and so much talent that
it's a generation that's either disappeared or disappearing. Yeah.
It's just very,
the world has changed.
Yeah.
And it won't come back.
No, and that's why it's nice that we remember it, we honor it on the show, and we pay tribute in our own way. So, but very cool. So, folks, if you have any last minute comments about this movie, please post them, and we're going to start to wind down. And what I'm going to do is we're going to go to the shout outs to the show. I'm going to go through those pretty quickly.
Do it.
First thing, this has been really like a tough week with losses, and I just want to give a shout out to remembering Mark Goddard. Really a fine actor, and he got his start. I mean, he did episodic television. He was folks out there that remember a television show called The Detectives. He actually was on that series with Adam West, in fact, and that was in I think around the early 1960s. He also had a show that was called Johnny Ringo that he was in. Mark actually was born in Massachusetts and, made his way out west, had his career. And then interesting enough, I mean, obviously he's known for obviously Lost in Space. He'll always be remembered as Major West from Don West from Lost in Space, a role that he did in 19. Yes, and Robert Taylor, exactly, Christian. Yep, in The Detectives. They did the pilot in 1964. He really wasn't too enthused about doing the pilot. He's been quoted in saying, but his agent said, "Do it, take the money. It's not going to sell. Nobody will remember it." And then look what happened. I mean, the rest was kind of history. And he did a lot of episodic television after that. After Lost in Space was canceled, after the 3 seasons, and did a lot of convention appearances. I mean, I felt very fortunate to have met him at several of the Chiller appearances. I know Lou that is out there. Had met him several times. In fact, I was looking for a photo and I was going to post on my Facebook page, and I wasn't able to find it, and I had several photos taken. And when I was visiting my parents today, my mom actually said she just came across this, and this is from 2006, and this was at Chiller, so this was like literally 17 years ago. He was at the Chiller Theater event. Just such a nice guy. I remember bringing my son Ryan to one of the Chiller events, the conventions, and when he was in, I introduced him to Mark, and Mark said he was on the show, and then Ryan said, well, what did you do on the show? And he goes, I was a pilot, and he said I wasn't a very good one, and he said, they used to call me Crash West, and it was just, just a nice, camaraderie there, a nice moment. And what's really cool about Mark too is, I mean, he left acting, and what he did was he came back to Massachusetts, and he went for his master's, and he wound up teaching, being a teacher of struggling students, inner city kids, and he did that for I think at least over 20 years, and just totally changed his career, and just again going to the conventions, just a really fine human being. So he's definitely going to be missed, and our heart goes out to him and to his family and all the Lost in Space fans out there. Also, Phyllis Coates, for the folks out there remember in The Adventures of Superman, she was the first Lois Lane in regards to that series. I mean, I don't know if you remember, what was it? Superman and the Mole Men. I think that came out in 1951. It came out as a theatrical movie first. And then what they did was they did The Adventures of Superman television series, and she was on for the first season. And then obviously Noel Neal came on shortly thereafter that and did the rest of the seasons. But Phyllis Coates just passed away, and she was 96 years old, and she passed away this week as well. And then again, she really brought a lot of respect to the role of Lois Lane, a different take on the character as opposed to Noel Neal, but still a wonderful actress. And she did a lot of other things besides Superman, but of course, as Superman fans is remembered for that. And then the news broke today too, which I don't have a slide for, but Suzanne Summers passed away, and she had been battling breast cancer for over 23 years. So another person that we grew up with watching on, especially like Three's Company, and she also had her other shows that she did as well too. So definitely very sad in regards to that. Just want to give an update. The Eagles Landed is in production. Jeffrey started day 1 of shooting, and he was out in Indiana with Todd Morton. So they were doing that. So filming has commenced on that. So very exciting that is moving forward, folks. So again, for information in regards to the production, you can go to the website. It's www.eagledocumentary.com just to find out more about The Eagle Has Landed. But it is in production, so that's very, very exciting. So it is underway. Now we want to give our friends at Sci-Fi Distilled a quick shout out to Mike and Mary Beth. They talk about science fiction of the 80s, 90s, and beyond. They are on Wednesday nights. They will be back on the 18th, this Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, to talk about the horror drama film Underwater, which came out in 2020. Did you ever see this film, Ross?
No.
I
don't even know what it's about. It must be about being underwater.
Yeah, I'm assuming. But anyway, it's their Halloween movie that they're going to be covering. So definitely check out Mike and Mary Beth. That's Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And again, they will be talking about Underwater. And I want to give a shout out to our friends at Country Gate Playhouse, my friend Bill Scarrato, the owner of the theater. They are getting closer for the production of Steel Magnolias. And if you're in the Belvedere, New Jersey area and you would like to see the show, it is going to be between October 28th and November 5th. And you can visit their website for information. It's going to be www.countrygate.org, or you can go to Bill's website, which is www.billscorrado.com for information in regards to the 2023 season. So again, it's Steel Magnolias, and that will be October 28th to November 5th. And our friend Captain Phil's Planet is broadcasting on WUSB 90.1 FM, Stony Brook, New York. The captain's schedule is on, alternating Thursdays from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and also on Friday nights from 9 to 11:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And Phil has actually got a show going on this Friday, which the invitation is out to us, Ross. It is a discussion in regards to Star Trek Season 2 of Strange New Worlds. So he's going to be doing that at 9 o'clock on Friday night. And stay tuned, and we may be on there. Or I might be on there. I don't think Ross will be on there, but I might be on there. And I know Mike and Meredith will also be on there, too.
Not bloody likely.
Yeah, I know Ross won't be on there. I'm not even going to pretend that Ross is going to be on there because I know he's not going to be on there.
Thanks for the invitation, though.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Of course.
But I don't know the show.
Yeah, I know. And that's from Captain Phil. I want to give a shout out to our friends at Trek Talking, a Star Trek podcast. You can check them out. They are on Facebook, again, Trek Talking. And also, I just want to thank them for their support of our show. So if you have the opportunity, definitely go and check them out. They have a lot of cool information that they share in regards to Star Trek. And also want to give a nice shout out to Martha for Studio One Thrift. Just so you know, folks, if you are in the Pennsylvania area, the Stroudsburg location, a new physical store has been opened. So again, congrats to Martha on this. And also, if you can't make it to the physical location, you can go to Studio One Thrift online, which is at www.studio1thrift.com. And you can find out information in regards to their lineup. Again, quality, stylish, affordable clothing for men and women. And you can also get styling tips. And with informational updates, just be sure to subscribe to the website. So just want to put that out there as well. And Ross, if you can let everybody know what you've got going on coming up.
Oh my goodness. So wait a minute now. This is always so confusing to me because you have the Pacific times up there, as it should be. These are the two shows I've got on KWAX. Quacks. The Classical Oregon. Picture Perfect's the movie music show. That's on Friday nights at 5 o'clock Pacific time. So it's really 8 o'clock here, which means it totally conflicts with our shows on Friday nights. So, and The Lost Chord is the unusual and neglected classical music. And that's on Saturdays at 4 p.m. Pacific time, which means it's 7 o'clock Eastern time here. You can stream them at the address that's indicated there. And I do preview them on my Facebook page. So you can find out more every week, on Friday and Saturday at Classic Ross Amico. I hope you're following my page, by the way, because I'm always writing about movies when I'm not writing about classical music. So there it is. You can either go to my page or you can Google Quacks.
Yes, and that's quacks.uoregon.edu. And I just put that into the comment section. So definitely check it out, folks. And as Ross said, he's got his Facebook page, which you can follow. So please go on there and check it out. And
these people all know about the Facebook page.
Yeah.
You're all regulars, you know.
Yeah.
I don't even know why I bother.
No, it's good to put it out there, Ross. Anyway, thank you, Ross. Thanks for sharing that information.
Thank you.
And just to let everybody know, we were talking about this film earlier. Ross and I will be back Friday, and that will be October 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And we are going to be continuing our Halloween month celebration, and we are going hardcore, folks. We are going to be discussing the 1973 film, The Exorcist. Now, this is actually celebrating the 50th anniversary, so we really thought this would be a great opportunity to discuss this movie. We were talking about possibly doing this last year, but we decided to wait because the 50th anniversary is this year. So,
and William Friedkin just passed. So
yes, and
not too long ago, the director. Yeah,
right. So, so definitely check. If you haven't seen the movie in a long time, we just suggest you check it out. And it's very
try to find the theatrical cut if you can. because you know how it is. They always have the version you've never seen or the director's cut or, and
The revised cut.
yeah, just stick with the theatrical cut if you can find it,
Yeah,
which you
definitely.
can't. Fortunately, I own it, but
Oh, there you go. Which you can't. Now it's out there. But
but you know how it is. They make the other ones available, and then you can't see the originals.
right, like Star Wars.
It's annoying. Yeah.
And just as a reminder, folks, I would just ask if everybody can just take the opportunity. If you have not, I would just ask just to, if you have not liked the show's page on Facebook, or if you have not followed the show on Facebook, to please do so with both. And then also, if you can please subscribe on YouTube as well. There is no cost associated with that. It's just that I'm just trying to get us to be where we need to be as far as promoting the show, and it would be very helpful. And I actually have up there about Twitter, and then Twitter is now referred to as X, so that is actually outdated.
We should just drop that.
Yeah, so if you just actually take the opportunity to do that, it would be very much appreciated. And
don't listen to Ross.
Yeah, but don't listen to Ross. So, anyway, but that's where we're at. And
I'm not in the driver's seat, folks. I'm just along for the ride. I'm in the sidecar.
There he is. But no, I thought that was a fun discussion, Ross. It was
good. Yeah,
it was good. I do want to mention, and Christian pointed this out. Yes, Piper Laurie passed away.
Yes.
Carrie, another horror film from 1976,
right. And Twin Peaks.
Yeah, Twin Peaks. Yes.
Yeah,
she actually won the Academy Award. She had not acted, I think, in about 16 or 17 years up until that point. And then she came back and did Carrie, and she won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress in that film. So, yeah, another tragedy as far as a loss in the acting community. So, But, yeah. Well, what do you say, Ross? Looking forward. I was almost going to say, I guess that's going to be the last word. But on that happy note, wishing everyone a wonderful week ahead. Lots of stuff going on. Stay safe. And as we always like to say, live long and prosper. And we will see you on Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time as we discuss The Exorcist. Take care, folks. Have a good night and a good week.